State investigators in New Mexico are currently searching the former Zorro Ranch, once owned by financier Jeffrey Epstein, for evidence of alleged sexual abuse and sex trafficking. The search took place on March 10, 2026, as part of a reopened investigation initiated by Attorney General Raul Torres. Epstein purchased the sprawling Zorro Ranch in Stanley, New Mexico, in 1993. The property, which includes a hilltop mansion with a private runway, was used by Epstein to host guests. No charges were ever filed against him in New Mexico. The initial investigation into the ranch was closed in 2019 at the request of federal prosecutors in New York. However, new revelations from previously sealed FBI files prompted Attorney General Torres to reopen the case last month. State legislators have also established a new commission to examine past activities at the ranch. This signals broader efforts to reassess historical cases involving Epstein's alleged crimes. The property was sold to the family of Don Huffines, a Texas state comptroller candidate, in 2023. The search of the ranch is part of ongoing efforts to uncover the full extent of Epstein's alleged criminal activities and support the survivors of his alleged abuse. Officials from the New Mexico Department of Justice have expressed their appreciation for the cooperation of the current property owners and have pledged to keep the public informed as the investigation progresses. In a significant development, Australia has granted asylum to 2 additional members of the Iranian women's soccer team. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke announced Wednesday that the women were offered temporary humanitarian visas before departing the country. The move brings the total number of Iranian women's soccer team members and staff granted asylum in Australia to 7. 5 players and 1 staff member were previously granted visas. The remaining team members and staff returned to Iran late Tuesday, despite protests from Iranian Australians concerned about their safety. Minister Burke clarified that the asylum offers were made individually and without pressure. However, some team members were not eligible for asylum due to connections with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The players' decision not to sing the Iranian national anthem during the Women's Asian Cup drew significant attention in Australia. The situation highlights the complexities surrounding the safety and rights of international athletes caught in geopolitical tensions. As the conflict in Iran continues, Australia's actions underscore its commitment to humanitarian policies in the face of international pressure. The story is still developing, with officials and activists watching closely for further developments. In a rapidly evolving conflict, Ukraine and Russia are trading claims of territorial gains on the battlefield. Meanwhile, U.S.-brokered peace talks have been postponed due to the ongoing war in the Middle East. Reports from both sides paint a picture of continued military action, with Ukraine claiming significant territorial advances in Dnipropetrovsk, Russia asserting progress in the Donbas region. Ukraine has reported pushing Russian forces back in the southeastern Dnipropetrovsk region, reclaiming nearly 400 square kilometers of territory. Meanwhile, Russian officials claim they are making gains in Donbas. This reduces Ukraine's control over the region from 25% to 15 to 17% in the past 6 months. These conflicting reports highlight the complexity and fluid nature of the ongoing conflict. Ukrainian forces continue to use advanced drones and missiles against Russian targets, including a reported strike on a microchip factory in Bryansk. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to target civilian areas in Ukraine. The delay in U.S.-brokered talks has raised concerns over the prospects for a resolution to the conflict. The United States is reportedly considering easing sanctions on Russia's oil sales amid the Middle East conflict, a move that could provide Russia with additional financial resources to fund its invasion. In response, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for the U.S. to maintain sanctions. This emphasizes the potential negative impact on Ukraine's efforts to secure peace. The situation remains fluid, with both sides continuing to engage in military operations and diplomatic efforts struggling to make headway. As the conflict continues, international attention remains divided between Ukraine and the broader Middle East crisis. The United States and Israel intensified their military campaign against Iran on Tuesday, with U.S. officials stating that most of Iran's nuclear fuel production capability has been destroyed. President Donald Trump warned of severe military consequences if Iran places mines in the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran continued its attacks. This includes missile strikes on a U.S. base in Iraq and drone strikes on an Israeli oil refinery. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth warned that Tuesday would be the most intense day of strikes inside Iran, targeting not only nuclear fuel production, but also sea mine-related targets in the Strait of Hormuz. The Pentagon reported that approximately 140 U.S. troops have been wounded in the conflict, with over 100 returning to duty. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher, vowed to continue striking aggressors, while Iranian security officials warned President Trump to watch his actions closely. The conflict has escalated, with both sides showing no signs of backing down. The implications include continued global instability and risks to international oil supplies, with potential for further military escalation. The situation remains tense, with both sides continuing to threaten further military action. Officials are currently assessing the extent of the damage and planning their next moves. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal expressed deep concern and dissatisfaction after attending a classified briefing regarding potential U.S. military action in Iran. The briefing, held Tuesday, March 10, 2026, before the Senate Armed Services Committee, raised questions about the possibility of deploying ground troops. Blumenthal highlighted several key issues during his remarks. He stressed the need for more information about the costs and dangers of such a military operation. The senator also voiced worries about the potential for further escalation involving Russia and China, which could complicate the situation further. Despite the concerns raised, the exact plans for U.S. military involvement remain unclear. Senator Blumenthal's comments reflect ongoing discussions and debates within the Senate about the strategic implications of potential troop deployment in Iran. The situation is still developing, and officials are expected to provide more details as the discussions progress. President Donald Trump has claimed that Iran possesses U.S.-made Tomahawk cruise missiles, an assertion that the White House has neither confirmed nor denied. This claim came amidst ongoing investigations into a bombing of a girls' school in Iran that killed 165 people and was widely believed to be carried out by a Tomahawk missile. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was questioned about Trump's statement during a press briefing. This asked to clarify why the president made the claim. Leavitt sidestepped the question. This emphasizes that the president has the right to share his opinions with the American public. She did not provide any additional information or evidence to support Trump's assertion. Raytheon, the manufacturer of the Tomahawk missile, confirmed that the weapon is sold to some allies but provided no evidence that Iran has acquired the missile. Trump himself admitted that he does not know enough about the issue to fully explain his claim. The situation remains unclear, with the White House maintaining a stance of silence on the validity of Trump's assertion. As the investigation into the bombing continues, the focus remains on gathering concrete evidence to determine the accuracy of the president's statement. The U.S. electric grid is grappling with rising demand due to the expansion of power-hungry data centers and the 14% decrease in solar panel installations following the Trump administration's rollbacks on renewable energy subsidies and incentives. Greg Curter, former CEO of San Miguel Electric Cooperative, highlights the transition from coal to solar energy as the cheapest option. However, political and industry roadblocks are impeding rapid deployment of renewable solutions. In Texas, the cooperative is set to replace an old coal plant with a 400-megawatt solar farm paired with battery storage. However, the timeline is stretched due to bureaucratic hurdles and the need for natural gas backups. Meanwhile, Pablo Coziner, Chief Commercial and Operations Officer at Vernova, emphasizes the current backlog for gas turbines exceeding 80 gigawatts. This indicates a significant demand and long lead times for these installations. This delay complicates the urgent need for power generation to support the burgeoning data center industry, exemplified by Microsoft's $7 billion investment in Wisconsin for one of the largest and most powerful data centers in the United States. With energy experts predicting a substantial increase in electricity demand over the next 2 decades. The electric grid faces significant challenges in balancing renewable and fossil fuel solutions to meet future demands efficiently. The State Department has approved up to $40 million in emergency funds to pay for charter flights to evacuate Americans from the Middle East due to transportation disruptions caused by the ongoing Iran war. Secretary of State Marco Rubio waived the requirement for Americans to reimburse the government for transportation costs, addressing criticism over the department's handling of the evacuation efforts. Since the outbreak of the Iran war on February 28, over 40,000 Americans have returned to the U.S. from the Middle East. The State Department has organized more than 24 charter flights carrying thousands of U.S. citizens. Occupancy rates on these flights average less than 40%. This reflects ongoing pressure on the U.S. government to support American citizens in crisis situations, particularly in conflict zones. The State Department continues to monitor the situation and will work with Congress should additional funding be necessary. The United Nations mission in South Sudan is refusing to comply with a government order to evacuate its base in Akobo, an opposition-controlled area near the Ethiopian border. This decision comes after the South Sudanese army ordered peacekeepers and humanitarian organizations to leave the town ahead of a planned assault. The UN mission, led by Anita Kiki-Gibiho, says it will provide a protective presence for civilians in Akobo. The mission warns that any military operations in the area could endanger the safety and security of those living there. The situation has raised concerns about the potential for further displacement and suffering among the local population, with over 280,000 people already displaced in December 2025 during a government counter-offensive. Western governments, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Norway, have urged President Salva Kiir to revoke the evacuation order to prevent further civilian suffering. The current conflict in South Sudan is a result of the breakdown of a 2018 peace deal between government and opposition forces. The situation remains tense, with humanitarian workers and civilians beginning to flee the area. Local officials and health workers report shortages of essential supplies and the possibility of further deaths and displacement if the offensive proceeds. The Pentagon has reported that approximately 140 U.S. troops have been injured in the ongoing conflict with Iran, with 8 service members listed as severely injured. According to Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell, this number reflects the escalating impact of the conflict, which is now entering its 11th day. The updated figures reveal a higher toll than previous estimates by outside analysts had suggested. Of the 140 injured troops, 108 have already returned to duty, indicating that many of the injuries are minor. Conflict, which began with a series of retaliatory rocket and drone strikes by Iran, has also resulted in the deaths of 7 soldiers in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. The Pentagon has informed Congress of a $5 billion cost for munitions alone in the first 2 days of the conflict. This estimate does not include other war-related expenses. This financial toll underscores the growing impact of the conflict on both military operations and the U.S. defense budget. The situation remains fluid, with officials continuing to assess the broader impact of the conflict on U.S. forces and the potential need for additional funding from Congress. Longtime U.S. Representative Benny Thompson has won the Democratic nomination for Mississippi's 2 congressional district, defeating 2 younger challengers in Tuesday's primary election. The victory sets Thompson up to potentially win his 18th term in Congress. Thompson, 78, has represented the district since the early 1990s and is a ranking member on the House Homeland Security Committee. He won the nomination with over 50% of the vote, despite challenges from Evan Turnage, a 34-year-old antitrust lawyer who has worked in Washington. Purdy's Herman Williams III. The district, which spans from central Mississippi to the Mississippi River, is considered a Democratic stronghold. Thompson's win highlights the challenges faced by long-term incumbents from younger party members who aim to usher in a new era. Marvin King, a political science professor at the University of Mississippi, noted that incumbents often have the advantage in Mississippi, where voters tend to re-elect established representatives. The results of this primary election underscore Thompson's enduring influence, and the support he has garnered over his long career. As he prepares for the general election, Thompson remains a prominent figure in Mississippi's political landscape. In Tuesday's special election for Georgia's 14th congressional district, Democrat Sean Harris and Republican Clay Fuller have advanced to a runoff schedule for April 7th. After no candidate secured a majority of the vote, the winner will serve out the remainder of Marjorie Taylor Greene's term, a seat that President Donald Trump has endorsed Fuller to win. Greene, a controversial Republican lawmaker, resigned in January following a public dispute with the president. The special election featured 14 candidates, with Harris, a cattle farmer and retired brigadier general. This leads early returns despite the heavily Republican district. Trump's endorsement of Fuller, a district attorney and former White House fellow, is seen as a critical factor in this race. Fuller believes that Republican unity will be key to his victory. Meanwhile, Harris has positioned himself as a candidate who can bridge party lines and work for all constituents. This runoff election is crucial for both parties. A Republican win would bolster the party's slim majority in the House. Meanwhile, a Democratic victory would signal a significant shift in political dynamics for this traditionally Republican district. Both candidates are now focused on the April 7th runoff, with Fuller confident in his ability to secure the majority needed to win. The situation remains fluid, with both campaigns gearing up for the April runoff as the next step in this closely watched political race. China's exports have surged by 22% in the first 2 months of 2026, according to figures released by China's customs agency, significantly outpacing forecasts. This growth comes despite an 11% decline in shipments to the U.S., as exports to Europe and Latin America have seen substantial increases. The export figures reveal a strong performance in key sectors. Semiconductor exports, in particular, have soared by 73%, driven by robust global demand for AI and technology products. Auto exports have also seen a notable increase of 67%, alongside a 27% growth in mechanical and electrical items. These figures contribute to China's trade surplus, which reached a record $1.2 trillion in 2025. Meanwhile, the U.S. remains a significant market for Chinese exports. The country's economic reliance on trade with the U.S. has diminished, with imports from the U.S. dropping nearly 27%. Analysts predict that the recent pace of export gains may not be sustainable, but still expect robust export performance to support China's economic growth amid domestic challenges and geopolitical uncertainties. The situation is closely monitored as Chinese leaders have set a modest economic growth target for 2026. This signals cautious optimism amid ongoing global economic uncertainties.